without further ado, I'd like to introduce Michael Nye. He's our friend, the artist, and philosopher. Michael, would you please?
Thank you. That is so nice. Thank you so much. So generous. I've got my clip-on bow tie on and my blue tennis shoes, so I'm all ready. Tonight really is an incredible celebration of compassion and empathy and listening. And I know the 50 people in the exhibit, I wish they were here and know that they're being paid attention to and listened to in such a deep way. I have a friend named Crispin Sartwell, and he lives up east. He's a philosopher, and he lives on a farm. And at night, you can see the clear sky. You can go way up to the Milky Way. And he told me this story about his two children, Hayes and Jane. Hayes was 13, and Jane, the daughter, was 7. And one night, there was one of those large harvest moons that just comes up, and you just stop and stare at it. And they were out walking along, and later they came back inside, and Hayes said to his father, "Dad, I never saw the moon until I showed it to Jane." And I was thinking to myself, what a beautiful thing to say, that you don't see something until you show it to someone else. How do you see hunger? How do you really see it? Why does it happen? How does it leave someone's life? There's so many questions. This exhibit really has changed my life in so many ways. I think John and I were talking too about some issues, about how profound hunger is. And I think this exhibit is really unique because everyone speaks in their own voice about their own life experience. Wait a minute. Thank y'all. Okay. I had an exhibit at the Fort Worth Museum, and it was a very large opening. There were lots and lots of people. And they had a television station, Channel 6 or Channel 10, doing a live report. And right before the reception, the man came over and he said, "This is live television. What is your bottom line here?" And I just remember stuttering. That's all I could do was stuttering. How do you summarize hunger or mental illness in one sentence? You can't do it. And Dennis tonight asked me if I would say some things about what I've learned in the 4.5 years of listening to people's stories around the country. And I'd like to say a few things that I learned and came away with. I think, first of all, how invisible hunger is. As I was working on this project, people would say, "What are you doing?" "I'm working on a project on hunger." And the next question was, "What country are you working in?" I mean, there's a disconnection between the reality of hunger and the people that are in our own communities. I also learned about that there's no one face of hunger at all. Every story is unique, it's different, it's uninvited, it can be profound. I also learned that hunger is 6 letters, and it should be a word like hippopotamus or Mississippi, because it does have that kind of complexity to it. It should have many more letters to it. It's very hard to understand. I think that people that are hungry need food, but they also need hope. They need vitality and passion. And I think the food bank and all the people that give, the board, give people that sense of a way of moving out of hunger, a hope. And that is so important. I think that I have heard so many words. I heard words like it's blinding, that it's worse than you ever imagined, that the uncertainty is very difficult to walk by grocery stores or restaurants and have no money, that it's terrifying, that it creates fear. One man said it's like being against a glass wall where you can see and hear and feel, but you feel paralyzed. Another person said it's like being ripped away from your life, a life that felt ordered and normal, to another life like leaves being ripped from a tree. I learned that you can be poor and hungry and still be responsible. I think being responsible means that you respect the rights of others, you pay for what you receive, that you keep your word. You can be poor and hungry and be very, very responsible. I've also learned that there's so many stereotypes, and we've all heard them. We've all been in debates and conversations that they're lazy. This group of people are lazy. They don't have character. If only they would work harder. The food bank contributes to hunger because they create a dependency. But if you look deeply, if you listen to stories, you see how wrong that is. What I saw is mental illness, schizoaffective disorder, agoraphobia, schizophrenia. I saw addiction that is so difficult that people wake up in a gutter. It grabs them by the throat. I saw accidents and injuries, so many of them, where you never expected it would happen to you. I saw old age, beautiful people that saved money, that bought things, and then it just didn't work out. I saw the recession, where you had a job and the company says we're downsizing. I saw lack of education, where you're stuck in a minimum wage job and things get very difficult. I saw teenage pregnancy, I saw violence, people getting out of prison with a felony record trying to get jobs. I saw natural disasters, lots of them, where one day everything was fine, the next day you had nothing and you were just hanging on and there was nothing at all. It changed everything. Heart disease, diabetes, cancer. And then you think of all of the children that have no choice in the matter at all. None at all, that go hungry at night. The one thing I tried to do the best of my ability was have a fidelity to each person's experience, to tell the truth, whether I liked it or not. What did they say about their own life? Not trying to find any story that sounded good or was a success story. I think hunger, there must be a reality to understand hunger. I also learned that storytelling are the threads that bind us together. Our own stories, our grandparents, our parents, our children, your stories. Some of you here have gone hungry. Stories are like walking into a dark room and turning on a light. It's illumination. It's knowing something, but then knowing it in a deeper, more thoughtful way. It's about stepping out of your own life into a life of another. It's empathy, which I think is a defining feature of our humanity. Stories rest on edges of surprise and revelation. I also learned maybe the most important thing. I was at an exhibit and this very wealthy CEO came in and he didn't listen to any story and he just walked up and said, "Why do you enjoy suffering and misery so much?" I wanted to punch him one real hard, right in the midsection. And every one of you would have said the same thing that I said without any hesitation. I don't like misery and suffering, but I do care about justice and fairness and treating others the way you would want to be treated. I learned also another thing, is that hunger is reversible. That so many people get out of hunger. It's not a black hole. And that I want the people on the board and all the wonderful people working here at this food bank to understand that you are profoundly changing so many lives that you don't know, that don't know you, but you're making their lives better. I've seen it, I've heard it so many times. I've also learned that listening is an act of kindness. I've had so many people say, no one's ever listened before. I've learned something just by talking. I figured something out. I have an energy just by talking and reflecting about this issue. I've learned a lot of things with this exhibit. Thank you for listening to those 3 pieces, and thank them for their courage to tell their stories. I want to just say a few last words in conclusion. First, I want to thank Kathy for all that you do. I did mention your name. You are amazing. Thank you for your great spirit. This is an amazing food bank. It is. I've seen a lot of food banks. Feeding America gave them the 2 top awards in the whole country for backpack feeding elementary children, and also for infrastructure technology, making best uses of funds and fundraising. But I think mostly it's how it's your passion and how you work together, your focus, and all the things that you achieve. Amazing board, and so it's such an honor to be here with all of you. One last short story. I just kind of thought of this when I was listening to the last story. I was on the freeway in San Antonio listening to NPR, and this story came on about a Chinese man by the name of Tian, and he worked in a boiler factory in Beijing. And after work, he got on his bicycle and rode across town to visit his best friend who lived in a concrete building. And so it was like a 10-story building, so he yelled up, "Come down, come down, come down." He didn't want to walk upstairs. And so finally, this woman on the 3rd floor stuck her head out the window and said, "Hey, you should be an opera singer." Yes, something turned on in the heart. Within 2 years, this man, not that any of us could do that, was singing in opera houses in New York, in London, in Istanbul, in Berlin. But I think it's relevant because we can all be, and most of you already are, that woman who sticks their head out the window and says, "Hey, you down there, I'm going to help you. You can make it. We're behind you. Yes, yes, you can." Thank you all very much.